A very happy morning to all my dear students. Welcome to Science Online class. In today's class, we are going to revise lesson 2 in biology, the classification of the living world. In our previous lesson, we have studied the organization of cells in a multicellular organism. That is how the cells form tissues, group of similar tissues form organs, and the organs combine together to form the organ system. And finally, the different organ systems in our body, they all work together to form the organism. We studied about tissues in detail, the types of plants and animal tissues. In this lesson, we are going to revise about the classification of the living world. First of all, let's see what is classification. Classification means grouping things together on the basis of common features or characteristics. So, in simple words, we can say classification means putting the similar things together in one group. Example, we classify the books in libraries and we classify various things in shops and grocery stores. Students, have you thought why is classification necessary? Yes, classification not only helps us to find things easily, but it also helps us to identify them. For example, when you visit a library and you want to pick a book on history, you can easily go to the history section and the history rack where the history books are found and you can locate your book. So, this is how classification plays a very important role in our day to day life. Next, let's see about the classification of living beings. There are many varieties of living forms in our world, and scientists have identified millions of living organisms already, and there are millions of organisms yet to be identified. Students, how does classification helps us? Classification helps the scientists to study the living beings in a systematic way. That is, it helps the scientists to identify new organisms. It helps them to know the basic characters of all the members of a group by studying the characters of few members. That is, when I say kingdom Monera, all the organism in this kingdom will have the same characteristics, and it also helps the scientists to share information about the organisms in a systematic way. So children, we have seen how classification helps us. Next, we are going to learn how did the scientists classify the organisms. The scientists classified all the living beings into broad categories on the basis of the common features. So on basis of their similar features, they classified the organisms, and these categories are called as kingdoms. So how did scientists classify? They classified based on their common features, and these categories are called as kingdoms. So what is kingdom? Kingdom is the broadest unit of classification. So you can see on the top of the hierarchy is the kingdom. So kingdom is the broadest unit, and the smallest unit of classification is species. In the earlier days, scientists divided the entire living world into two kingdoms, and they called it as two kingdom classification, and they are kingdom of plants and kingdom of animals. Later, scientists termed the organisms into prokaryotic organism and eukaryotic organisms. So what are prokaryotes? Prokaryotes are organisms which do not have a membrane bound nucleus, whereas eukaryotes are organisms that have a membrane bound or a well defined or a true nucleus. Eukaryotes may be unicellular or multicellular. Unicellular means made up of a single cell, whereas multicellular means they are made up of many number of cells. And now the living world is divided into 5 kingdoms. They are kingdom Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. The kingdom of prokaryotic unicellular organisms comes under kingdom Monera, example bacteria, whereas eukaryotic unicellular organisms such as amoeba belong to the kingdom Protista. And these organisms can exist singly or in colonies. Colonies means group. And next is the third kingdom, kingdom fungi, and this kingdom consists of unicellular organisms such as yeast as well as multicellular organisms such as molds and mushroom. And the fourth kingdom is kingdom Plantae, and the fifth kingdom is kingdom Animalia. And each kingdom is divided into divisions, and usually for plants and fungi, and or else we call phyla. And each division or the phylum is divided, it is subdivided into classes, and each classes is further divided into orders, and each order is again divided into families, and family into genus, and finally the genus is divided into species, which is the smallest unit of classification. So all living beings are classified into kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia. We have seen about the importance of classifying the plants and animals. Now let's learn the importance of naming the organisms. So there was a scientist, his name was Carolus Linnaeus. He was a Swedish botanist. Botanist is someone who studies plants, and he proposed a theory called as binomial system of naming the organism. So this system he proposed for naming the different kind of organisms in our world. In this system, an organism's name consists of two parts, and the first part of the name is called as genus, whereas the second part of the name is called as species. The first part is generic name and the second part is called specific name, and the names used in this system are usually of Latin origin. They are all Latin names, and the generic name must always start with a capital letter, whereas the specific name can start with a small letter. So whenever you write the name of the species, you must always write the generic name with starting with capital and the specific name starting with small letter. And while writing the scientific name of an organism, you must always underline it. When the name is printed, it is in italics. So you can have a look at the examples of scientific names of certain species. Example, mango Mangifera indica. The scientific name of tiger is Panthera tigris. Scientific name of lion is Panthera leo. Dog Canis familiaris, cat Felis catus, and human being is Homo sapiens. Cauliflower Brassica oleracea verbotritis. Next, we'll fastly revise the characteristics of each of the kingdom. Kingdom Monera. This kingdom consists of unicellular prokaryotic organisms. Unicellular means made up of one cell, and prokaryotes, they do not have a well defined or a true nucleus. And some of the examples are all the bacteria including cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria is called as blue green algae because their ability to photosynthesize. And now we are going to discuss about the important characteristics of bacteria. Bacteria were probably the first living organisms to live in this earth, and cyanobacter in particular are thought to have created the conditions, they have created the appropriate environment necessary for the development of other life forms. So cyanobacteria, it is said that they have created the appropriate environment necessary for the development of other organisms. And bacteria, they can survive almost in all living conditions. They can be found anywhere and everywhere in soil, water, air, snow, springs, and it can even live inside the digestive tract of animals and even human beings. So now let's see about the structure of the bacteria. A bacteria, since it is a prokaryote, it does not have a membrane bound nucleus. It does not have a nucleus which is covered by a nuclear membrane, and its nuclear material, it lies scattered in the cytoplasm because they do not have a nuclear membrane, and they lack most of the organelles. They have a different type of intracellular structures, and most of these structures, they do not have a membrane. And most bacteria have a cell wall made up of a substance called as peptidoglycan. So peptidoglycan is a substance which forms the cell wall of the bacteria. So next we'll see the shapes of the bacteria. So bacteria can be round shaped, rod shaped, spiral and comma shape. So the round shaped bacteria are called as cocci. So children listen carefully. Round shaped bacteria are cocci and the rod shaped bacteria are called as bacilli. Spiral or spiral shaped bacteria where the comma shaped bacteria are called as vibrios, and usually cocci and bacilli they can occur as single cell, they can occur as pairs, and they can even occur as a chain of cells, and cocci may also occur as group or clusters of 4 or more cells. Next, we'll revise the nutrition of the bacteria. So, bacteria are usually autotrophic, which means they prepare their own food, and sometimes they're heterotrophs and saprophytic in nature, which means they obtain the nutrition from the dead and decaying plants and animals. So, what are saprophytes? Saprophytes means obtaining nutrition from dead and decayed plants and animal matter. Some bacteria are commensals. Commensals means they live in a host body and they get benefit from the host without harming or helping the host. So commensals means they live in the host body and they don't harm or help the host. And others like bacteria in our intestine, they are called as symbionts. Symbionts means the bacteria which live in our intestine. They help us in many ways, but they become dangerous when they multiply in our intestines. And that's why they have said they benefit from the host and they are useful to the host too. And parasitic bacteria. So, parasitic bacteria means the bacteria which live in the host body and it causes diseases in the body. So, based on the type of nutrition, bacteria are classified into autotrophs and heterotrophs like saprophytic, commensals, symbionts and parasites. Next, we'll see how bacteria are useful to us. Isn't it very amazing, children, to know that bacteria are both harmful as well as useful? And you will be amazed to know that bacteria are useful in many ways. Okay, let's see what is the first one. First, different species of bacteria they live in our intestine, and the bacteria in our intestine it helps in digestion, it prevents from infection by other microorganisms, and they also produce vitamins. So the bacteria in our body they help in digestion, they prevent infection and they produce vitamins. And second, the dairy industry they use a bacteria called as lactobacillus, and this bacteria is used to produce curd, that is yogurt, and cheese from the milk. So at home we use curd and we mix it with milk to produce a large amount of curd. So usually curd has the bacteria called as lactobacillus which helps in preparing large amount of curd. Third, bacteria are also used in the production of alcohol, vinegar, tea, coffee, and tobacco. And many antibiotics are the medicines we use to kill bacteria. The antibiotics are obtained from the bacteria, and certain bacteria also produce vitamins and some enzymes. And fifth, some bacteria such as species of rhizobium, these bacteria they live in the leguminous plants. Okay, what are leguminous plants? Plants such as pea, gram, beans, these are called as leguminous plant because they have nodules, okay, node like thing. These bacteria they convert the nitrogen which is present in the air into forms that can be used by the plant, and this process is called as nitrogen fixation. Children, what is nitrogen fixation? The process by which the bacteria in the plant convert the nitrogen in the air into forms that can be absorbed by the plant is called nitrogen fixation. And in return, these bacteria they get the nutrition from the host plant. So when the plant dies, what happened? The nitrogen will be released into the soil and it will be utilized by other plants. And sixth one, bacteria helps to clean up the environment. So how does it clean the environment? By breaking the biodegradable waste like your kitchen waste, your crop waste, dung, human feces, the leaves, fallen leaves. So everything is degraded by bacteria. Children, we have seen that bacteria helps in eating up the waste or degrading the waste, and bacteria is also helpful in producing a gas which is called as biogas from the organic waste. So this gas is a renewable source of energy and it is very cheap. It can be used for cooking and for generating electricity. And the decomposition of the organic waste by bacteria is also used to produce compost. So the organic waste are decomposed by bacteria and compost is produced which can be used as a manure. Next, bacteria help in the protection of fibers, plant fibers like flax, hemp, jute, etc. So how are they prepared? The stems are immersed, they are all immersed in water, and bacteria act on the stem and the fibers are loosened. This process is called as retting. We have discussed about the useful bacteria. Now let's discuss about the harmful bacteria. So first, the fruits, vegetables, milk and whatever food items are spoiled by the growth of bacteria in them, because bacteria produce something called as toxin. Okay, the toxins are poisons. So this lead to food poisonings. And next, bacteria cause many diseases like typhoid, tuberculosis, cholera, pneumonia and plague, and many diseases are caused by bacteria. Bacteria also cause diseases in plants and animals. So we have learned about bacteria. So next we'll learn about the kingdom Protista. All the eukaryotic unicellular organisms that are not animals or plants or fungi, they fall under this kingdom. And these organisms, they can exist either singly or in colonies. Colonies means in group, and they are usually heterotroph, that is they depend on other organisms for nutrition, and but very few of Protista are autotrophic in nature. And some of the organisms in this kingdom, they cause diseases like dysentery, malaria and sleeping sickness. First, let's revise amoeba. Most species of amoeba live in fresh water or in soil, and some amoebas they live within the body of other organisms. And the most important characteristic of amoeba is the shape of amoeba keeps on changing, and it has finger like projections or outgrowth, and these are called as pseudopodia. So pseudopodia are finger like outgrowths, okay, and they are called as pseudopodia, where pseudos means false and podia means feet in Greek. Next, we'll learn the structure of amoeba. The cell is surrounded by a flexible cell membrane. The cell membrane is not very rigid, it is flexible. And the cytoplasm is divided into two parts. One is ectoplasm. Ecto means outside. So it is just near to the plasma membrane, and the other part is called as endoplasma, which means endoplasm, which means inside. So the nucleus and the other organelles, they are all suspended in the endoplasm. Next, we'll see about the locomotion or movement of amoeba. So amoeba moves with the help of pseudopodia, and the movement is called as amoeboid movement. That means when amoeba wants to move in a particular direction, a pseudopodium is formed by the flow of cytoplasm into that direction of movement and withdrawal of cytoplasm from the opposite direction. So that's how the amoeba changes its shape, and pseudopodiums are formed in which direction they want to move. And this type of movement is very common in several members of Protista family. Next, we'll see about the nutrition. Amoeba feeds on tiny algae and bacteria. So how do they feed? Is by engulfing the bacteria. forming a food vacuole, and this process of engulfing a bacteria, engulfing a food particle is called as phagocytosis. So what is phagocytosis? The process by which a amoeba engulf a bacteria or a food particle is called as phagocytosis. The engulfed food particle is digested in the food vacuole, and the food vacuole also expel means give out the undigested food by releasing the content from the vacuole outside. So the process of expelling the material from the cell is known as exocytosis. Students, you can turn your books to page number 17. Have a look at figure 2.9. This is the structure of an amoeba. Amoebas are usually shapeless. They can change their form or shape. It is covered by outer cell membrane, and they have an endoplasm and ectoplasm. Ectoplasm lies just beneath the plasma membrane or cell membrane, and in the endoplasm are the organelles like nucleus and other organelles suspended, and they move by pushing their cytoplasm to one end and they form pseudopodia. You can watch in figure A, you can watch the pseudopodia. The cytoplasm flows in the direction of movement, and withdrawal of cytoplasm from the opposite direction also occurs, and the nutrition is through a process called as phagocytosis. So you can see in figure A how the pseudopodias are formed and it engulfs the food particle there, and this process of engulfing the bacteria or enclosing the food particle or bacteria is called as phagocytosis. In figure A, you can clearly see how the food particle is engulfed inside and a food vacuole is formed. And in figure B, you can see that the food inside the food vacuole gets digested. And finally, the undigested food is also expelled out, and this process of expulsion of undigested food is called as exocytosis. So you can very well see clearly in this picture. Next, we are going to revise about the respiration, excretion and reproduction of amoeba. So what is respiration? Respiration is a process by which we breathe. We take in oxygen and we give out carbon dioxide. So amoebas, they do not have any specialized organ, any special organ for respiration. They just take in oxygen and they give out carbon dioxide. And next is excretion. The amoeba excrete the waste through the cell membrane or through a contractile vacuole. So what is contractile vacuole? It is like your urinary bladder. So the contractile vacuole, gradually it fills with excess water and waste material, and finally the vacuole moves towards the plasma membrane and it fuses with the plasma membrane and they contract at the same time. So this expels the water and waste by the process of exocytosis. Reproduction. Amoebas reproduce by a process called as binary fission and multiple fission. So what is binary fission? The process by which a single cell divides into two is called as binary fission, and multiple fission means a process by which a single cell divides into many cells. They are called as multiple fission. So binary fission is the most common mode of reproduction in amoeba. So what happens in binary fission is, first the whole cell divides into two. First, the nucleus divides into two. Later, the cytoplasm also divides, forming two daughter cells having their own cell membrane and nucleus. And in some unfavorable condition, amoeba reproduce through multiple fission. So what are some of the unfavorable conditions are? Like extreme temperatures, like very hot or very cold temperature, presence of any harmful chemicals, lack of food or oxygen or moisture. In multiple fission, the amoeba withdraws as pseudopodia. It becomes spherical in shape, as you can see in figure 2.11, and it slows down all its life process because in order to save energy, then it secrete a three-layered wall. Okay, a three-layered wall, and in this stage, the amoeba is called as a cyst. And within the cyst, the nucleus will divide repeatedly to form many daughter nuclei. So many small daughter amoebas are formed and they are all present inside the cyst wall. So once the condition becomes favorable, the cyst wall will rupture, giving out and expelling all the daughter amoebas, which will soon grow into adult amoebas. So this is how amoeba reproduce by multiple fission, especially when the circumstances are unfavorable. Students, in this session we have revised about the classification of living organism and naming of the organisms, and in detail we have learned about kingdom Monera and kingdom Protista, especially the characteristic of bacteria and amoeba. So children, your assignment for today will be learn and copy lesson 2 notes neatly in your classwork notebook. Children, draw the diagram as it is given in your book, and read page number 11 to 18 from your book and learn all the key points and write the key points in your rough note. Thank you children. Have a nice day.